It's me. I'm just sitting in my room and I thought I would record a video. So basically, today has been a really good day. Um, I chilled, I got some sun, I organized my space, I had a 3 hour call with my boyfriend making music together. I went to the gym, I went for walks. I've done all my things that I've loved doing. And even though I had a really, really great start to the day and great big portion of the day, still there came a time where I had a little meltdown. And there was no real reason. It wasn't like there was a big catalyst, something big happened and then I spiraled. It was more an accumulation of many little tiny things. Like when you're autistic, for anyone really, but when you're autistic, so many little things affect you that your brain processes that other people don't even necessarily notice. So things like subtle noises, things like light, things like high pitched noises, things like the sound of electricity or a clock ticking. And then I struggle with temperature. Sometimes, like, I'll just be so cold and I can't warm up, and nothing I do helps me warm up. And then today, I was way too hot, and nothing I did was helping me cool down. Like, I was having cold drinks, I had a cool shower. Um, I was actually lying naked in my room, just staying completely still so I could be as cool as possible. Um, and it was interesting because it made me think that sometimes you can do all the right things, quote unquote right things, and still life can be challenging sometimes. And I was really impressed with how I handled it, not because I didn't struggle, because I really, really did struggle and I felt like I couldn't cope with it. But even when I felt like I couldn't cope, I knew that I was going to. And it felt really very much like a panic attack, but I knew it was a meltdown because of the triggers of it. I wasn't anxious about anything. It was all the noises of the estate, every single sound that I could hear, every sensation of anything on my skin was felt awful. And yeah, it was just not a very nice experience. But what I ended up doing was putting my phone across the room, putting on a frequency music that I could just about hear, air, earplugs in, pretty much noise cancelling ones. I could just about hear a little bit of the frequency music that I put on, but nothing else. And I lay naked in bed, completely still, for a while until everything felt a little bit less intense. And yeah, I just waited it out. And I communicated with people that I was having, a bit of a hard time. And I just waited it out. And it's funny because now, even though I can still feel the remnants of that in my chest, and when I talk about it, it kind of makes me a little bit stressed because it's a horrible feeling. Now I feel good and like I can cope with things and a lot more organized in my brain. And I think I just wanted to film this as a little reminder that tough times actually don't last. And I've heard, some stories of things happening where, autistic people haven't been able to cope and regulate with the heat. And it's really sad, and I don't want people to make permanent decisions based on temporary conditions and situations. And I think it's really important that we as a society raise awareness of and for autistic people, and how it's hard to regulate yourself, because it's hard enough to regulate yourself if you're not autistic, but when you are, certain things that are normal to other people feel like the world is literally ending when you're autistic. It's crazy. And yeah, I think I'm in a position where I'm, well enough to be able to speak, and yeah, I speak on these topics, and I've had times where I wasn't well enough, like mentally. I'm not talking about being autistic, but like mentally well enough, because the funny thing, well, it's not really funny, but the thing about being autistic is it can cause mental health issues if you don't have the support. Even if you do have the support, it can cause mental health issues, because when you're expected to function like a neurotypical person in everyday life, and you're not a neurotypical person, that causes mental health issues if you don't know how to cope with that, or if you aren't someone who's like able to break out of the mold and make their own path. Because I have autistic friends who do creative things, and that's how they make their money, and yeah, it works for them, and I think that's really cool. I'm not currently making money from my creativity, so I'm working a normal job. And yeah, it's just interesting how, when you're expected, especially as a woman as well, because we're obviously on a 28-day cycle as well as being neurodivergent, that's quite a lot of variables that play into how well you're able to go about each day, and how different each day is, and even each hour can be. And yeah, I think it's just really important that we raise awareness for people to learn about themselves and figure out what it is that helps in times of struggle, because it's so different for everyone, and there's not one size fits all. And also, there's no cure to these things. It's not something that's wrong with anyone. So it's not a matter of like taking medication and or like putting a bandage on it. It's not an illness. It's how we are as people, and there's nothing wrong with it. The only thing that's wrong with it is that we're expected to act the same way as people who aren't autistic, or people who don't have chronic illnesses. And that's the issue. The issue isn't being autistic. It's a beautiful, wonderful, magical thing with so many positives. Um, the issue comes when we're supposed, we're forced to be a certain type of way, a certain type of pace, taking in all this information. Like, the way our brains process information is very different as well. Like, we notice so many more details and feel so many more sensations all at once. And I think that's why so many amazing artists are autistic as well. And but yeah, I just wanted to, I just felt called to speak on this, and just send love out to anyone who's struggling, whether you're diagnosed or not diagnosed. Like, I was lucky enough to be diagnosed last September with both autism and ADHD. And it was really odd, because when I was diagnosed with ADHD, it was very much like, yeah, obviously, I knew I was. I've known I was for years. With autism, I really strongly suspected I was for about a year, but up until then, I had not at all. And when I got the diagnosis, I just cried, because it was like all the times that I'd spent feeling alien and broken and misunderstood and different and weird and wrong, because I was trying to be like people who weren't autistic and function the same way as people who weren't autistic, when I finally heard the words like, yeah, I want to diagnose you with autism, either level 1 or level 2. I know that I'm level 1. That's just, I just, yeah, I'm not level 2. I know that. But the lady who diagnosed me said she wasn't sure if I was level 1 or level 2. Um, and at the time, to be honest, I was in a very much worse space. So I would present probably more like I needed more support than I do now, which would make sense why she thought that. And specifically on that day, I was having an especially difficult day where I just couldn't really make any eye contact. Um, so yeah, it was a very amazing thing, and I do encourage people, if it's something if it's something that I think you feel called to, and you are privileged enough to be able to pursue a diagnosis, even if it's just to validate that younger version of yourself. Um, but honestly, you don't need an official diagnosis to do that. For me, it really helped, but you know yourself, and you don't need any label unless you feel that label is going to allow you to understand yourself at a deeper level, and therefore get to a place where you don't need the label anymore. Because for me, I went super in it, like I was on the research. I was researching autism and ADHD like it was my job, genuinely. And I really needed that, and I got that out of my system. And then I did a whole 180, and then I didn't even think about being autistic. I didn't think about being ADHD for a while. And then it kind of caught up with me because I've been working really hard in the heat. In the UK, we've been having a heat wave, what we called a heat wave anyway. And I've been running around in a hospitality job in the heat. And, some days it's all right, but the way my brain works and the way my body doesn't regulate temperature very well, that's been a massive challenge on the really busy days. And it took someone saying to me, like, Maisie, you are, you are still autistic. You do still have ADHD. You should find some ways to support yourself within this role so you can keep going, and so you don't throw everything away because of a bad day or a bad hour. And I realized that I'd gone so long without, well, it was probably only a couple of months, but without caring for that part of myself that needs a little bit more intentional support and really needs that regulation and that sensitivity. And yeah, I just wanted to make a video that could potentially be a reminder to people, whether you're diagnosed or not diagnosed, or even just questioning things. I really hope you take the time to go within and ask yourself what you need. And if that doesn't look like what anyone else around you needs in terms of rest or food or movement or hobbies or whatever, if it looks different, I just want to be the validation that that doesn't mean it's wrong, and that doesn't mean you don't deserve it, and it doesn't make you weird or broken or anything. It just means that you're a very beautiful, unique, sensitive being who is finally learning to give themselves and their inner child what they've longed for probably a lifetime. So yeah.